Let's first recap the problem as it stands. And by the way, there is going to be no flying or anything in this video. It's pretty much just going to be me talking, and we're going to be discussing these particular cells. So the problem as it stands is lithium polymer high voltage. Is it real? Does it work? Is it legit? Should you spend your time or money on it? So lithium high voltage is not a new concept. We have had 18650 cells or lithium ion cells in high voltage rated chemistry long before we had lithium polymers rated to high voltage chemistry. The lithium ion category entirely is as difficult to track and measure and monitor as our lithium polymer category is. It's really hard to figure out what cells are real, what they actually do, because there is misrepresentation across the board of all lithium batteries on the market. But lithium polymer high voltage cells first made their appearance on the market around I think about 4 years ago. And when they first came out, they were all the rage because they were batteries that were physically smaller and lighter and had higher capacity with an even more exaggerated bogus C rating. And what was actually happening was that just because the pack had more voltage, it felt like it had more power. So the battery companies decided to just jack up the C rating and say, hey, our packs are super special. So we all bought the lithium high voltage hype. And so a lot of YouTubers were recommending them. However, when we started using these batteries cycle after cycle after cycle, I personally and most others found that around the 15 to 20 cycle mark, the lithium high voltage cells or batteries just lost their zest. They just weren't quite as bubbly and powerful and fresh as they once were when they were new. And after about 20, 25 cycles, they were significantly worse than standard lithium polymer cells, whether they were new or after 15, 20 cycles. Now, I have to point out that back then, the concept of using a battery until it was chemically dead, as in it just did not perform as nicely as it once did, was foreign. Batteries don't last forever. They're a perishable medium, and they only last for a certain number of charge cycles. Lithium specifically only lasts for a certain number of charge cycles before they've just lost their ability to perform the way we once wanted them to. And that, I won't get any further than that. Anyways, as we use more and more lithium high voltage batteries, I personally, as well, again, as many others, noticed that, hey, we're not finding that lithium high voltage lasts very long. Maybe we should just forget about lithium high voltage and go back to regular voltage, because it's not worth spending the extra money or the money period on a high voltage pack that's only going to last you 20 charge cycles, 25 charge cycles before you even want to use it anymore. Might as well go with the regular ones, and you don't get that much of a difference. Now, I'll talk about flight performance a little bit later. Fast forward to today, and probably also even back then, there might be something a little bit different. Not might. There's definitely something a little bit different about some lithium high voltage cells. Now, GMB is a company that I have decided to work with exclusively at this point, because of all the battery companies I've talked with, they are the one company that has never really lied or falsified or anything to me personally. And I speak to their engineers directly, and I get really great information and really educational information out of them pretty often, and they're very responsive. I had a really good relationship with them over the years, so I decided to move back to them exclusively. And more recently, the batteries that they've been coming out with are very consistent in the sense that, yes, the C ratings are all bogus, all the batteries are, but at least the lower C rating is genuinely different than the higher C rating. And now I can say that at least in these cells that I'm going to be talking about, the high voltage is genuinely a different chemistry than the regular standard voltage. Now let's focus in on these packs. And again, I have to point out that this does not speak for all GNB lithium high voltage cells. However, I would find it odd if they used a different chemistry on other size cells. But these packs in particular, which are designed specifically for the class that I work on, which is the toothpick class, this little tiny 3-inch quad. By the way, there's a lot of things coming for this quad. I know it's been super out of stock. That's because I've been working on a lot of things, as well as I just can't get any parts out of China right now, so it's become an issue. Anyways, let's talk about my findings when testing these packs. So me and a friend have spent quite a bit of time running a number of these packs through their paces to figure out the things that we have figured out at this point. And it was very important for us to do this because I was actually trying to get a pack that I could consider what I would say the standardized pack for my particular class, because it is what I'm focusing on at this point. So it was very important for me to find out the information for myself so I can present it to you guys. This video was also recorded probably weeks before it actually comes out, and so I probably have a lot more charge cycles on all the packs than I do here, what you're seeing. So I took these two cells. I have about 10 of each of these that I've been running through their paces, and the most updated information is on the FPV Cycle website, and you can read the little description in the actual product page. But these two cells are pretty much the same in the sense that they're the same size, same shape, maybe half a millimeter here or there. They're the same exact weight across the board. They all average about 41.8 grams per pack. Depending on the wire length, that'll change plus or minus about a gram. And the sizing of the batteries are very consistent. Again, between the regular and the high voltage, there's about half a millimeter here or there, give or take. That's different. So they essentially look the same. And previously, I would have said that lithium high voltage is the same thing as the regular ones with a different label on it, and that's why they don't last very long, because you're running a battery outside of its normal chemistry range where it operates at. However, when I first took all the batteries out of the pack, I first tested their capacity. So I charged them up to, all of them up to 4.2 volts, and then I proceeded to charge all of them, both the high voltage and their standard voltage, up to high voltage. What I found was that the standard voltage would give me roughly 460 to 70 milliamps, going from about 3.3, 3.4 volts up to 4.2 volts. And the high voltage packs would give me roughly around 410 milliamps, 400 milliamps, going through that same voltage range. So standard cells, the full normal voltage range of a lithium polymer cell gives you about 450 to 460 milliamps. The high voltage gives you a little bit less, about 50 milliamps less. When I charged both of these packs up to 4.35 volts per cell, I found that they are both accepting the same amount of milliamps. I mean, exactly the same. I mean, across the board, it was 60 milliamps. Going from 4.2 to 4.35, it's 60 milliamps, plus or minus 1 milliamp hour, which is really impressive and very curious, because the standard pack is taking the same amount of extra milliamps as the high voltage pack. And also very curious is that the high voltage pack is not getting the full capacity from a regular 4.2 volt charge. So right there and then I can say that there is a genuine chemical difference between these packs, because it's just not charging the same way. There's got to be something different about these packs. So then I started reading all of the internal resistance ratings. And something about internal resistance is that it is a little bit finicky depending on how you measure your internal resistance. From charger to charger, the internal resistance will change, and depending on what rate you actually charge the batteries at, if that's how you read the internal resistance, because that's all your charger does, you will get a different internal resistance as well. So the way I read my internal resistance was charging all the cells from a storage voltage, 3.88 volts per cell, at 3 amps. So I charge them at 3 amps, and I would read the internal resistance. And all of the cells, high voltage or regular, when they were fresh, would read somewhere between 1 to 2. That was the range. Maybe there was like a 2.2 or a 2.5 here or there, but really 1 to 2 pretty consistently. Then I started running these packs cycle after cycle after cycle, and I was not gentle on them at all. I would charge all of them got a charge at 5C. That's it. I didn't have time to wait, so I would charge everything at 5C. So they charge real quick, not 5C, 5 amps. And at 5 amps, that's more than 10C on all these batteries. So I genuinely was not kind to these packs. It's not recommended to charge your batteries at 10C. Really, I would recommend no more than about 3 or 4C if you want to maintain the longevity of the battery. Charging them too quickly will increase the internal resistance, and it will deteriorate the chemistry inside the pack faster. And I did not fly them gently. However, I do have to point out something about the platform that I am flying them on. This is the primary quad that I've been flying them on, and I have run probably 300 packs through this quad at this point, which is pretty darn impressive. But and it's held up no problems at this point. And so this quad is incredibly efficient to fly. you can hold the throttle wide open for about a minute and a half or minute the whole time throughout the entire pack. And so it doesn't really pull a lot of amps out of the battery. And you could actually go down to about 350 milliamps per cell and get about the same performance out of the quad, probably more performance because it's going to be a lot lighter, but you just can't hold the throttle wide open for quite as long. But I like long flight times, and I'm okay with the flight performance I'm getting out of a quad that weighs around 102, 104 grams all up weight. So when I was running these packs down, I couldn't quite, I'll get that in a second. Just keep that in mind that this quad is a very efficient quad that I'm running it on. What I found was that after 26 charge cycles, which is what's on both of these packs at this point, I found that I was getting almost plus or minus 5 milliamps, exactly the same capacity out of almost all of the cells. Plus, like, there was like one pack that was kind of a little bit wonky. It was like 10, 12 milliamps less. But out of all of them, I was getting very consistent capacity measurements when I would put charge back into the packs. But the internal resistance did change. Now, something else I have to point out about the regular lithium packs is that I was extra not kind to them. About every 5 cycles, I would charge them all up to high voltage to see how they were performing and just to compare it against the high voltage packs to see how things were going. And so what I found was that these standard packs, after 26 cycles, which is what I'm showing you here, I'm probably up past 50 at this point, but when you're seeing the time of this video, I found that the internal resistance of the standard packs, measured exactly the same way, went up about 0.2 to 0.5. Not a lot, pretty impressive, especially for how much I was abusing the packs. The internal resistance of the high voltage cells, however, went up about 1.5 to 2.5. So right there you can see that there is genuinely more deterioration out of the high voltage packs. However, in flight performance, remember I talked about how the quad was very efficient. I cannot tell any difference versus a brand new pack, brand new cells. And that's primarily because the quad does not have very high C rating requirements. It doesn't require a lot of amps because it is so light, so efficient, so capable, and the battery is oversized for the quad that it's running on, and I like that a lot. That means you're not stressing your batteries a lot in flight. It means they're going to last a long time. You get really long flight time. You can really hammer the throttle. You don't have to worry. Really get fantastic performance. I love that. That is my goal. So when I talked to the GMB engineers, they told me that the high voltage cells are not designed to last as many charge cycles as the standard cells. However, they could not tell me a cycle rating on any of their batteries. I give them that because it really depends on how you use the pack. If you're charging them at 10C like I'm charging them, they're not going to last long. And especially these cells that I've got, I don't expect them to really last the same way past 50 cycles, charging them the way I'm charging them and using them the way I'm using them, because I'm really punishing them over and over and over, little by little, but I'm punishing them over and over and over. But directly from the company, they tell me that you can run both of these packs down to 2.8 volts per cell, which I do not recommend. I don't recommend running your packs down past 3.3 volts per cell. Really bare minimum. At that point is when I land. You really know when your pack is totally dry because you keep getting low voltage warnings, especially on a very efficient quad where you won't see voltage warnings until the pack is totally dead. At that point, you know that you really need to land. If you look at the voltage curve of a lithium pack as it's being used, you kind of get a little drop off at the top from 4.2 down to 3.8, 3.9 volts per cell, and then it kind of stays pretty stable until it gets to about 3.5, 3.4 volts per cell. Then it starts kind of dropping off a cliff. When it gets to that point, don't keep flying, just land. You're damaging your pack. It's not worth it. Just put it in a new pack. So the difference between high voltage, if you have a genuine pack that can function in the high voltage chemistry range, is that it does not last quite as long. Now, the flight performance is another thing to point out. Both of these packs fly for the same amount of time, plus or minus 5 seconds over hundreds of flights I've done at this point. I am not getting any more flight time from the high voltage pack versus the regular pack, or the regular pack versus the high voltage pack, which is very impressive. Charging the high voltage pack to only regular voltage gives you significantly less flight time. Charging the standard pack up to high voltage gives you about 10 seconds more flight time, but you will be damaging your standard voltage pack considerably. Other things that I've noticed is that the high voltage cells maintain their slightly higher voltage for just a couple of seconds longer than the standard voltage packs when you charge the standard voltage packs up to high voltage numbers. And so I would argue, is the high voltage actually worth it? Costs about the same. It's 50 cents more. You get just a smidget more performance, especially on a quad that is so efficient to fly. That means you're going to get even less performance increase on a quad that's not quite as efficient to fly. It's really hard to say if it's worth it. And the standard voltage packs, punishing them hardcore, are performing really well even when charged to high voltage. So it's really a toss-up. In my opinion, I prefer the standard packs. But then again, I have run these high voltage packs pretty darn hard, and they've lasted quite well over all these charge cycles. So I really leave it up to you guys, the user. We have stocked both of these packs. The standard voltage ones with the XT30 connector are actually very rare and hard to find in this cell size from GMB, but we have stocked both of them at FPV Cycle, so you guys can buy them and decide for yourselves. And depending on the purchase velocity of the cells is going to be the packs that we choose to carry in the future, because now that I have tested both of these, talked to the engineers, done all my own work, I can verify that I know that their high voltage cells are genuinely different. They are actually different chemistry. The engineers also tell me that they are working on 3.4 future. Now, the most updated information about the testing of these packs is available on the product page of these packs on FPV Cycle. I do not recommend you do the testing that I have done, because I am about to do things that are not safe. Don't charge these packs over 4.35 volts per cell. It is just too dangerous. It's not worth it unless you're very experienced, you know what you're doing, you've been around the lithium polymers quite a bit. Don't push it. Another thing I would point out is, what on earth happened to Joshua Bardwell's expensive battery tester? Is he still doing his tests? I don't know. I haven't even looked on his website. Maybe his, and I'm just kind of making a fool of myself calling him out. But please, send it to me at least. Let me do some tests of my own, because this is really important to me, and I really want my cells to perform the way I want them to perform, especially as somebody that is associated with a store that now only will stock things that I believe in and work properly, as far as I can tell, up to a certain point, because I'm only one person and I only have so many people helping me, and it's just only so much I can do. So I hope this was informational, helpful. I know it was quite long, but this is kind of everything I have found so far in these batteries. And I was only going to get the standard voltage packs, but the hype of high voltage packs were kind of something that was looming over me, so I had to do this test for myself. And when I did do these tests, I decided to stock, even preliminary tests, only after 10 cycles of each, I saw that they were all performing the same, so I decided to stock both of them in the store so that you guys can tell for yourselves. Floss your teeth. Thanks for sticking around if you watch for this long about batteries. Yeah, I'm gonna make more things about batteries and whatnot, and look for really cool stuff coming out soon. Take care. Bye.